everybody.
Hi, friends. Well, from steaming hot Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
a podcast exploring religion, politics, and current events from two atheists just trying to survive in the heat in these United States.
It's so hot. I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show today, Dan, America at a Crossroads.
Wow, you made it sound like a PBS special.
Oh, I know. And so it is, actually.
Yeah.
One recent episode of Judy Woodruff's ongoing series, America at a Crossroads. She goes to an evangelical church in Nashville. Is that where Greg Locke is?
It's
Anyway.
Well, yeah, outside
somewhere. I don't know.
In
But
a tent somewhere.
In a tent. Greg Locke. Anyway, she talks to Greg Locke, members of his congregation, so forth and so on. I was intrigued.
He said some things that might surprise you guys.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about what he said.
Yeah.
Whether or not we believe what he said.
But strangely,
spoiler alert, we don't.
Kind of agree with what he said, even though we don't believe what he said.
Yeah, we don't believe he believes what he said. but there's a conversation to be had.
Indeed. All right. But first, Dan, there's some news, things that happened this week, stuff we need to talk about, including the pastor on an Alaska Airlines flight.
Oh God!
From Seattle.
You just those words, the beginning of your sentence. I don't even know what the story is, and you've described my nightmare.
Well, he was living his nightmare, Dan.
Oh no!
And he just couldn't take it any longer. It was on a flight from Seattle to Anchorage, and he was flying with his wife, and she got bumped to first class.
Ooh!
And he didn't like that. He apparently, during the flight, left coach, went forward in the plane, and started talking to her, and witnesses overheard him say, "How the hell did you get the upgrade?" And she responded, "I'm a Gold Point member. Don't speak to me like that."
Wow. First of all, this is a good relationship.
Clearly. He then handed his phone to his wife, telling her to read it. And they said that he was gesturing with his middle finger, right? So some people do that. They point with their middle finger. Sure. I don't know how people are still doing that, but they do. But felt, considering his overall posture and aggressiveness, people felt that it was inappropriate. And so it's part of the complaint that was filed. He then hit her on the head.
Whoa.
And has been charged with assaulting her on a flight and has been banned by Alaska Airlines from ever flying with them again.
Can I tell you the most shocking part of this whole thing for me?
What's that?
Alaska Airlines has first class?
Whatever.
I genuinely like
Alaska Airlines a real airline.
Yeah, but they're like discount crap airline.
It's not Southwest.
Isn't it?
No. And
Anyway.
like any of these discount airlines anymore, it's not Allegiant, right? Or Frontier. Right, it's a regional carrier. They've got a point system. That's how she was able to be upgraded, right?
How well does this husband and wife know each other? Have they met before? Because how do you not know? I don't. This is a baffling relationship to me.
Well, and here's the fact: they do know each other, and the whole hitting on the head thing. Apparently, the way that he's sort of presenting it is that it was kind of sort of an accident, blah, 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 blah. But he's not. He says that he's downplaying it. He says that he tapped his wife on the head, which, according to her, she has epilepsy, and he knows that touching her head is a problem, right? That it can cause, what is she saying? That contact with her head could cause a seizure. And so she says that he knows that. And so even just a tap is a risky, aggressive gesture. And witnesses were like, that wasn't a tap, right? Like he fucking hit her. And he was pissed. He was pissed that she took the free upgrade to first class when he's clearly the more deserving of the two.
Listen, in St. Paul's epistle to the Romans, I don't know if you know this, it says, and let the women give up their first class seat, for it is the men who deserve that level of luxury.
You know, if written today, probably.
Yeah.
Is that husbands love your or wives? Where is that?
I don't know. I mean, it is so funny to me. Like, I am positive that if that guy hadn't been caught in all of this, like that's it. Like, let's go back a week before this incident happens, and someone brings to his attention a story about how, you know, men aren't holding doors open for women anymore. He would have done a whole sermon about how chivalry should come back and how blah, blah, blah. But the second it inconveniences him in the least, or he's like made to like be a little less selfish than he was the time before. Oh no.
Right. Well,
it's absurd.
Well, chivalry, Dan, is just as much about keeping women in their place, as it is about.
That's the actual truth. That's not what
else
he would say.
Right.
Wow, I love it. You know, here's the thing. I will admit, something about air travel does something to your brain. It's like. I have behaved a little badly, Dan, at times.
What did you do?
Oh, I don't remember the exact circumstances.
Oh, sure you do.
I don't. I just remember that, like, after the fact, I was like, well, like Andrea and I have a thing where if there's one upgrade to be had, we don't care. One of us can go and take it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we'll rock, paper, scissors for it or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's other times it's like, you know, we'd rather just sit together, whatever. But there have been moments where I've been like, yeah, but there's an upgrade. So sometimes your brain just short circuits a little bit. I get that, but like, no, you definitely don't. Like,
how the hell did you get it?
What's going on? How did you get it? That's amazing. Now I just want, and again, this would negatively impact me, but now I want all of the upgrades to go to wives of people who would freak out about it. I just want those guys to be pissed off. Wow. All right. Well, apparently what would Jesus do is be furious about his wife.
He loves his upgrades. People
This is why Jesus didn't get married. He didn't want to have to split the upgrades.
I mean, he did have the middle cross, which was the important one.
Yeah. You nailed it. All right. I'm going to take us to this was sent in by a lovely listener. This happened outside of Sydney, Australia, where an art piece has caused pandemonium in a suburb called Liverpool, and the mayor of Liverpool had it taken down.
Oh my! This thing must have been awful.
I mean, it really hurts some feelings. I'll try to describe. I want you to imagine, if you will, a somewhat classical painting of Jesus carrying his cross, led by Romans, women weeping. That sort of that you can picture it, sepia tones all the way around.
Yeah, sure.
And then this artist took that and gave Jesus a sort of Disney-esque, like goofy style cartoon face, and gave other people in the crowd cartoon faces as well. You know, sort of a quasi Donald Duck on one guy and a lady with a goofy, you know, with a cartoon big nose. There's a little mouse, sort of a. Do you remember Speedy Gonzales?
Yeah.
Because he had. Do you remember that he had a cousin that was slow? He was Speedy, and then there was a slow mouse.
No,
I don't remember who it was.
this
Anyway,
at all.
that guy's on there. There's a cartoon cat sort of diving into the crowd.
Oh wow!
Anyway,
this sounds beautiful.
It's just a goof. It's a goof. There's a ghost with a bowler hat sitting on the cross as Jesus.
Okay.
Anyway, here's the thing. I think there's a lack of education as to what art is for and why. You know, we talked about art last week. We talked about a mosaic creator who was then, who was an awful abuser.
Right.
And but when it's something like this, where it's like, this art offends my sensibilities, it hurts my feelings, I don't like to see my Messiah depicted this way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Congratulations, art. Like, sometimes art is there to make you feel good and nice, and sometimes art is there to make you feel gross, and you got to think about it. And you sort of, like, that's the best moment in art, when you need to sit back and go, what does this mean? And why is it impacting me this, this powerfully?
Right, yeah.
But that's not what anybody wants to do. No, they don't want to do that. They just want to be offended and complain.
Right.
The mayor of Liverpool had a very odd quote. I thought this was a very bizarre quotation in The Guardian, which said, he said, "The Christian Messiah and the Muslim Messiah, Jesus, has no connection to the cartoon character Goofy."
Oh, wow. I mean...
Excuse me. What's that bit about the Muslim Messiah?
Sure, there's that. But there is no connection to Goofy.
Right.
He's
True.
right.
You're not incorrect on that point. The artist has drawn a connection.
Yeah.
Can we talk? Do you care to go into why you think the artist may have done such a thing? Anyway, it's just so silly.
Yeah. So wait a second. Back up. Where? So the mayor orders it taken down. Where was it hung?
In a gallery.
A public gallery, I assume.
How
would the mayor have the authority to?
Well, the mayor didn't order it to be taken down.
Okay.
The mayor called for it to be taken down.
Okay. I understood the like, and I was like, was this like at a public art show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it was. I think it was part of a city council like prize or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it won some sort of. It was an exhibition from the Blake Art Prize. Exhibition.
Wow. Okay.
Anywho,
but it offended the art. The art did what it was supposed to do. As the artist,
yes,
was very aware of when doing this.
Yeah,
this
the
was
artist
going to offend people. Right.
The artist was a person named Phil James.
Phil knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He is perfectly aware. And guess what? You fell for it. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe try to outwit the artist next time.
Right?
Right? Because you 100% now two ding-dongs in Salt Lake City are talking about it on their podcast.
Right, yeah,
mentioning his name. Right?
Yeah.
Like, guess what you just did, Mayor of Liverpool?
Yeah. Yeah, literally, apparently the artist received in the neighborhood of 200 very very nasty social media messages.
Oh, wow.
The artist said, I do like stirring up a bit of a reaction with my work, but the novelty very quickly wore off Friday. The level of vitriol and sheer volume of it was actually frightening.
Oh, my God.
I think there were threats. There were all sorts of... There was nastiness.
Oof.
Which probably means, this article doesn't say it, but probably means that, you know, some churchy person got a hold of it and saw that they could make hay, and hay they made.
Yeah.
So anyway, with the artist's approval, it has come down because it was just so... it was such a vitriolic response that...
Really?
Yeah.
That's insane. All right. Well, Dan...
Yes.
I have just a beautiful story here, Dan.
Oh, good.
About a baseball player who found Christ.
Oh, hooray.
This is wonderful. Just beautiful. First
Where was he? He found... we've all been looking for him for a while now.
Apparently he was in Nashville.
Oh.
Because that's where...
Well, that's why you can't find him.
First baseman Wes Clark found Jesus.
Okay.
Wes Clark plays for the Nashville Sounds. That's their local AAA team.
Okay.
And they decided they were gonna that this was gonna be an event, Dan.
Oh.
And
the
so,
finding of Jesus?
Yeah, he was.
They would hide him in the outfield, and then he'd pop up. Hello.
No, his baptism was going to be an event.
Oh dear.
And so he was baptized by a teammate in a horse trough.
Yeah.
Out on the field.
Yeah.
Right after their game this last week, where they beat the Memphis Redbirds 4-1. But both Wes Clark and his baptizer wore Jesus Won T-shirts.
Oh God!
During his baptism, and this was all fully sanctioned. About half the crowd hung out for it after the game, and they had originally wanted to do this much more appropriately, perhaps, although also inappropriately, but whatever. At the club's Faith and Family Night. Which is the inappropriate thing as well, I guess. But they announce it. I guess there's that.
Look, this isn't a government entity.
I know.
They can have.
It's a privately owned thing. It's a private
They can be as
event.
Jesus-y as they want to be.
But there's sort of a civic connection
that
the local sports team has. A sense of that it belongs to, even though there's a wealthy owner, that it belongs to everyone, right?
Right.
That it's our thing, right?
Yeah.
Right now, we're in the middle of losing our AAA team to the suburbs, and my neighborhood is very sad because we're where that team is, right?
Yeah.
And
your neighborhood is called the ballpark neighborhood.
Yeah, we literally are named after the fact that there's a ballpark right there. Very cleverly named ballpark.
Yes. We're all very original here in Salt Lake City.
But anyway, there ends up being a real strong civic connection, right?
Yeah.
And so there's sort of maybe a sense of propriety that people should have. But if they're going, but they have teams have a pride night or whatever, and so I'm not going to begrudge them of having a faith night.
Yeah.
If that's a thing that the local community is going to be into. I'm sure there's a prayer at the beginning and whatnot. But anyway, the baptizer had wanted to do it that night. But unfortunately, he kind of came forward with the idea a little too late. And the owners of the team were just like, we just don't have enough time.
Where am I going to get a trough on short notice?
And water at a, but they had agreed that they would do it at a future date. And I guess they announced it to the team, and they think they're being all sort of cool and everything. Yeah. They're like, hey, this is a quote. He says, at the team meeting before the game, I was like, hey guys, you may be a Christian, you may not. You may support what we're doing, but you may not. But I think it'd be really cool if you guys were there to support Wes as a teammate. Everyone was like, yeah, man, we're all about it. So everybody stuck around. It was pretty cool. he says. We even had a couple guys from the other team stick around. So anyway, so they had this big old baptism, and it was just great and beautiful, and everybody felt just the love of Christ descend down upon them.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
All I'm hearing is a missed opportunity. A glaring missed opportunity.
Oh?
How, at a baseball baptism, which, by the way, that is a prime title for a dumb Christian movie. Somebody needs to do that. How, at a baseball baptism, did they not get one of those dunk tanks where you throw the ball at the target and it dunks the guy? How is that not the obvious choice? And then all of the players can step up, make them throw from far because they're professionals.
Mm-hmm.
They can throw.
Yeah.
And they line up, and whoever dunks him, that's who baptized you.
I think that's great. I think it's beautiful. I'm sure that they would feel that it's completely respectful to the occasion.
Oh, yeah. They're in a horse trough on a baseball field. They're super concerned about being respectful about the occasion.
It didn't say it was a used horse trough,
I'm just saying.
If you need a something to hold some water that a grown man can fit in.
All I'm saying is the River Jordan, this ain't.
Anyway, I found this article on christianpost.com. They also they pointed out at the end of the article, because this was written very pro, like this was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, they had sort of and this comes in a long line of recent high profile baptisms, including comedian Russell Brand. Did you know he got baptized?
Yeah, and boy, what a shitbird he is. He went from I'm far left influencer guy to I have been molesting people for this whole time, and also I'm Jesus now. Team Jesus.
I guess Hulk Hogan also got baptized last year.
Oh, good for him.
So yeah, it's I mean, they're getting the good ones though, Dan.
Yeah, they're getting all of our best and brightest. For sure. Oh Lord. All right. Well, wow, I forgot that we had a whole rest of the show.
There's more.
There's more. But wait, there's more. So we talked, I think it was last week, about you had brought up a story about a church losing its insurance for molestation. Apparently they need to get like molestation insurance, and that church was denied. Well, there's another problem. There's actually a much greater problem, and that is that churches all over the country here in these United States are being dropped by their insurance carriers. Not their molestation insurance, but like their, just their regular insuring their building insurance.
Oh, really?
And it's happening a lot.
Okay.
It's due to a combination of things. One of them being that, there were supply chain issues during the pandemic, and the cost of construction sort of skyrocketed. And now, unfortunately, that hit these insurers really hard because, if a church was to have a claim, there was a fire or there was a whatever, rebuilding cost a fortune. And their supply, their funds were depleted. And I don't know if you've heard this, something's going on, but the weather seems to be getting worse and worse and worse all over. And so a lot of churches are kind of in the path of tornadoes, hurricanes.
Oh boy.
Torrential downpours that they didn't used to have, that sort of thing. So because of, it's not like global warming's real, but if it were, it would have had all of these effects that they've been talking about, that they've been predicting would happen since the 90s.
Right. Since earlier.
And so, yeah, a whole bunch of churches are not able to get insurance, or their insurance is skyrocketing.
Right. Okay.
You know,
yeah.
And here's the other thing. This is a huge building that is open to the public, that has children and elderly people coming into it. All of this sort of it makes it more expensive to insure.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of a smaller congregation church just can't afford. They're already losing their people anyway. So when their insurance goes from $23,000 a year up to $80,000 a year,
wow,
that
is a big increase. Yeah, holy cow.
Yeah, that is a fascinating thing. And most of these are insurance companies that specialize in churches. So, like, this is their whole gig.
I mean, but does that mean that they're more exposed, right? Like, if that's what they do, and churches are expensive to replace, and there's a lot of them getting knocked down.
Yeah.
But thanks to the hurricanes and tornadoes and whatnot.
Churches that haven't ever even filed a claim are being dropped by their insurers because they happen to be, in the striking path of Hurricane Beryl or, whatever.
Right. Or they're just in a in the zone of...
Yeah. They're just in a danger zone, and the insurers are just like, no.
Yeah.
We can't.
Wow. Well, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I could see some, like, conservative legislators, like, trying to come up with some horrific rule or something.
Right?
For insurance companies. Like, you have to insure them. And
right,
it can't
but
be...
the same people who would be trying to save the churches are also largely funded by insurance companies.
Why not just, when your building gets knocked down, have a fundraiser?
Listen, when your building gets knocked down, you keep telling us that when something happens, when a hurricane hits, it's because of the lesbians or whatever.
Right.
If your building gets knocked down, that's how God wanted it.
Yeah.
Fucking stay down.
Yeah. And now the insurance companies are coming around to that as well.
Yeah. If God knocks you down, you stay down.
Yeah. Maybe if you guys hadn't, like, participated in so much misinformation about climate change. Right? Maybe then.
Yeah. If you guys had stopped if you guys would have ever just listened to the scientists.
Right.
Maybe we'd feel bad for you a little bit, but we don't.
I don't.
So die.
Damn.
Institutionally.
The institution died.
Institutionally.
Okay.
I don't mean die as humans.
These people could be in the building when it gets knocked down, Dan.
Right?
Oh, my God.
It's not safe. Yeah. Don't go to church.
It's not safe.
Churches are not safe anymore. We just can't guarantee your safety. Get out.
Oh, and it's always been true, just in different ways. All right, Dan. This is one that the British people should be very proud about, because they have just elected or seated or whatever a parliament with the highest proportion of MPs opting out of the taking a religious oath, right? To be sworn into the House of Commons, and instead taking an affirmation, a secular or non-religious affirmation. Yes. It's 40% of this new parliament opted for a secular vow, including the new prime minister, Keir Starmer.
Love it.
And which is amazing. He is the first prime minister since Ramsay MacDonald.
Don't just make people up, Frank. That's not a real person. Caught you.
Ramsay MacDonald. You remember Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald, Dan?
Is he the guy that they sang the song "Old MacDonald" about?
I don't know.
Did he come to town riding on a pony? No, wait. That's
somebody
Yankee
else.
Doodle.
That's somebody else. No, that was in 1924. He was the last one to take the non-religious affirmation, which is also kind of surprising that in 1924 they had an option.
They were less uptight then.
Yeah.
It feels like they would have been more uptight, but no.
But maybe they weren't. But yeah, good old Ramsay MacDonald. Now you can include Keir Starmer. Of course, when you get into the numbers a little bit, if you'll indulge me, Dan.
Indulged. You consider yourself indulged.
40% of Labour, of the members of the Labour Party, affirmed instead of that. What's the other? Instead of
took an oath,
taking in
instead of oathed,
instead of that, swearing.
Swearing. That's what they did. They swore.
Thing, yeah. So there was 47% of them. There were 47% of the Liberal Democrats. All 4 Green MPs.
Wow.
All 4 of them. Yeah. And then some parties. I've never heard of.
I mean, how many of the Tories? That's what we want to hear.
9%.
Okay. I mean, 9%, that's still a thing.
Yeah.
If 9% of Republicans did that, it would be a scandal.
Well, apparently, and this is interesting, a small number of people who affirmed instead of swearing, they did so in spite of being religious, right? Because that was their preference for whatever reason. The article points out that some of those, it would have been because their religion forbids taking oaths, right? It pointed out that a Buddhist affirmed while holding a Buddhist text, but Buddhists tend not to swear on the text, and so they just sort of had it in hand while taking their oath of office. Yeah. And then the Humanist UK also pointed out that the reverse is often true, that plenty of non-believers will just end up swearing on the Bible. But yeah, so it's kind of an interesting thing. They are declaring themselves one of the least religious national parliaments in the world. Which, wouldn't that be amazing? Also, they are getting close with at 40% of Parliament being, effectively, very committed to secularism. Yeah. They're very close to they're inching closer and closer to the actual number of people in the UK who are non-believers.
Yeah.
And so, which of course,
this
UK
was an amazing election for them.
Remarkably
for those of you in the UK, congratulations. You guys, you did something. Yeah. You really made something happen. It's the most diverse parliament they've ever had, I think. It's
remarkable. And also, nice to get your pendulum swinging the other direction, guys.
Yes.
While ours is still swinging the other way.
You guys and France, I don't think ours is swinging. I think I think our pendulum might have broken.
And it's just flying.
We need to, we can't even repair. We can't even do anything. The pendulum's lying on the ground, bloody.
Oh, no.
It's not even, we're dead in the water for a little bit. We'll see what happens. I make zero predictions about what happens in this country.
We're at a weird time, Dan.
It is a very strange
crossroads,
time.
Really.
Yeah.
America is at a crossroads.
Well, I want to talk about one of the ways in which America is broken.
Oh, no.
And that is our tax-exempt status here. This is for nonprofit organizations, of which there are many. Mm-hmm. And you can set up a nonprofit organization to do any number of things, but the whole idea, and we've talked about this before, is that the reason that is that if you don't take a profit, because you're out there to serve, you're there to serve a public good as you perceive it,
right?
And thus you're going to not take a profit, but you're also going to be excused from paying taxes,
right?
I don't know. Maybe I question this system. Maybe I don't. I'm not sure about all of this. Like the whole nonprofit system. I don't know enough about it to really understand whether it's a good thing or a bad thing on the whole. But here's what I will tell you.
Okay.
almost all nonprofits have to file a Form 990, which is a report that they file to the Internal Revenue Service. They don't have to pay taxes, but this form basically explains all of their finances for the year. Shows where the money came from, shows where the money went, shows who's making what. If you work for a nonprofit, you know that your salary is public knowledge. That's just a fact of nonprofits, with the exception of churches.
Well, of course.
So churches and religious organizations, like religious groups, meaning they are active churches, mosques or synagogues or whatever, they don't have to file Form 990. Their finances can be cloaked in darkness forever.
Right.
Which is why nobody knew that the LDS Church had, hundreds of billions of dollars until a whistleblower came out.
Right.
I think that's bullshit, but there you go. There it is. But what this has led to is a bunch of skeevy groups, organizations, largely organizations on the right side of the of the political spectrum, groups like, for instance, the the FRC, the Family Research Council.
Okay.
Which is basically a politically it is a, I don't know, what would they call it, a think tank,
Okay, sure.
a hate group.
Might be more accurate. Okay.
It is bullshit. But I'll tell you one thing they ain't is a church. But that's how they file with the IRS now.
Oh, no way.
And there are a whole bunch of them. These groups that file as churches. And what they claim is the people who get our newsletter are the congregation. And all of us are ministers. And blah, blah, blah. And then they don't have to file any of the forms about what they're doing with their money or where they get their money.
These people have no shame. They would take advantage of the law that is written for their churches that they supposedly believe in.
Right.
In order to go off and do political things, which they know clearly don't fit into the intent of the law. They know it.
Of course they do. Of course they do. Here's the thing. So, I want to get back to that. But I'll first just say that a group of congressional Democrats, led by Representative Jared Huffman and Susan Delbene.
Okay.
Suzanne. I don't know. It's got a Z. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Anyway, they have already asked the IRS to look into why the FRC is claiming to be churches, and why, and other groups. Why are they churches?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I don't think that the IRS. I think that the IRS's current internal policy is, if an org says they're a church, and they fill out the forms that include this is our church credo and whatever.
Right.
They just accept that. And that's why I wanted to get to this. Why aren't all of the groups on the left doing this? I know that it's bullshit. I agree that it is, we agree that it is taking advantage of a system that was not set up to do that.
Right.
But if we want to change it, we've got to be the ones who are doing the dirty deed. If it's within the rules, and we want the rules to be more stringent, because we're not saying that they're breaking the rules. We're saying that the rules aren't working. I think TGIA should be a church. I think our organization, our dumb podcast, should incorporate as a nonprofit and file as a church.
Well, I have no problem with that, but
I've talked to lawyers about this.
Yeah.
I talked to Jeff Blackwell, who is the main litigating attorney for the American Atheists.
Yeah.
And I said this to him, and here's the thing. People always joke about it.
Right.
And they chuckle about it. And he gave the obligatory chuckle, like, ha ha ha, yeah, wouldn't that be funny? And I was like, no. I'm saying we need to do this, not because I want to not pay taxes, though I'm happy to not pay taxes.
You'd still pay taxes on your income, though, Dan, which is...
As a minister?
Yes, you do have to pay income tax as a minister.
Well, here's what I would say. Suddenly our domiciles are owned by the church and blah, blah, blah. We'll find ways of getting out of paying taxes.
I don't know that I'm turning my home over to...
Oh, you're turning it over.
Just so that we can make a point.
But what I'm saying is...
Maybe there's a way that the church could pay rent, and therefore it's like...
Right, yeah.
A rectory. I don't know how these things work. I mean, I take your idea, Dan. We can definitely talk about it offline. Right. We don't need to hash it out here.
If a whole bunch of organizations like ours did this, if we could create a template for doing this so that groups, because I don't think we don't make a lot of money or whatever, but like, we could, if we were a nonprofit, everyone who donated to us suddenly has a tax write-off.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're all donation based. I think that the way to break this system, the way to fix this system, is to point out how broken it is. I want all the podcasters in the atheist space to do this. I want everybody to do this. If you're a for-profit thing, great. You need, if you're making good money doing your thing, go with what's right. But everybody who can do this, I'm putting out a call. If you are an attorney listening to this and you have any knowledge about nonprofits and specifically churches and how to make this thing go, I think we should set up a template that will make it easy for organizations like ours to do this and take advantage for as long as we can and publicize it so that the conservatives are outraged about it and make them fix it.
Well, all right. You heard it here first.
Yeah. So that's the call. If you are an attorney, if you know an attorney who might know anything about this, contact us. And yeah, write into us if you have any ideas about it too. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com is the email address.
Or you could call and leave us a voicemail message. We'd love to hear from you. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There's more show coming up.
Well, Frank, we had some folks write into us, so let's dive in to our listener people.
Yeah.
Jim wrote into us to say, "Hey guys, thanks for all the great work you do on the podcast. Today I'm offering a bit of a quibble about whether atheists are executed in Saudi Arabia, aka KSA, or I suppose that's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia."
Yeah, sounds right.
This is not to defend a sometimes brutal land, but rather just to get the facts out. There's already enough misapprehensions and misinformation about KSA and Islam to go around. As one of you mentioned, it's not a good idea to go around proselytizing for atheism in the KSA, but I don't believe there's a specific crime of being atheist. What folks get executed for is blasphemy and apostasy, roughly hudud crimes and fasad, mischief/moral corruption. As though we couldn't be considered that.
I know.
Among other things like espionage and witchcraft. Now, apostasy means leaving Islam to convert to atheism or another religion, basically renouncing Islam. They don't like that. This is not to say that such malefactors can just go around doing their thing because, as in the U.S., they can expect death threats and harassment aplenty from neighbors and other non-official tormentors. The safe thing to do is just not make public announcements or stir up trouble. When I went to live in Riyadh, they wanted to know what religion I was. Although I don't have the original documents that I had to fill out to work there, I know for sure that I didn't name a religion or non-religion. I think I just wrote undeclared and had no problem.
Okay.
Now, I went to the U.S. State Department's website just to see what they had to say about this. And it says, this is me talking, Dan talking, not Jim.
Okay.
It says that the law criminalizes, quote, anyone who challenges either directly or indirectly the religion or justice of the king or crown prince. It says that the law bans the promotion of atheistic ideologies in any form. Any attempt to cast doubt on the fundamentals of Islam, publications that contradict the provisions of Islamic law, and other acts including non-Islamic public worship, public display of non-Islamic religious symbols, conversion by a Muslim to another religion, and proselytizing by a non-Muslim.
I mean,
So
you
think-
and I are in dangerous territory.
Yeah, I just don't think we could possibly
I
go
think
there.
as an atheist who, I think as Jim is pointing out, and this is the point I think that he's making, is as long as you don't say anything, you're
Yeah.
fine. But
Don't wear one of our T-shirts.
yeah. And that's, I mean, for what that's worth, I suppose, right? Like,
Yeah, but
because
the law...
like if a topic comes up that I don't feel free to talk about on, right? I think that's where, like,
Yeah,
anyway.
that's where we landed. And the other thing is, like, yeah, they're probably not going to harass you if you just don't say anything.
Yeah.
But just know that, like, if you go there and you're just hanging out and someone asks you, oh, what's your religion? And you happen to say, I'm an atheist, that could be enough. Like,
Yeah,
the law is that broad. They probably wouldn't do that. They don't want international incidents. But, it's not worth it. It's not worth it for me. All right, we had someone else write in. This is from Christian, who wrote, in episode 654, you talked with Kate about assisted suicide in Canada. We also have assisted suicide in Switzerland. The doctor provides the medication, but the patient has to push the button himself. There are different organizations that provide help to organize everything. This next part, this is Christian saying, this next part can be triggering to people who lost relatives. So that warning is out there. My own father was scared of having pain before his life end. He was a lifelong member of one of these assistance providers. He just wanted to fall asleep at the end and never wake up again. So the doctor did exactly that. We were all there, his kids, wife, and sister, to say goodbye. His friends called, and at the end, he fell asleep peacefully. I will never forget the sigh of relief and his smile when he pushed the button. He fell asleep, and the hospital did not provide food, water, or anything until he passed, only anesthesia. That's a form of assisted suicide, so the body shuts down on its own terms. It wasn't sad. He got his wish not to die in pain, and we could all say goodbye. It was a good end for a good man. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And
I
it
think
should be an option available to us all.
Yeah, and the fact that anyone would rather a person suffer in pain for the last however long of their lives.
But Jesus wants them suffering.
Well, I mean, that was Mother Teresa's take.
Yeah, it was. Totally was.
Gross.
Yep.
I don't approve of anyone who would rather see a person suffer than end things on their own terms.
Indeed.
So there you go. All right. Well, Do we have anyone to thank?
We do, Dan.
Hooray!
We have a new teacher.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, a new deacon.
Oh,
lest we give away these.
Oh my God! We almost gave too much power to someone who did not pay for it.
Ooh, what a mistake that would have been.
We're out here giving pretend magic powers away.
And so yeah, but let's give it to appropriately to Derby Cat. So thank you
Derby Cat.
very
Thank
much
you
for
so
your
much.
support of the show. We really do appreciate it. If you'd like to join Derby Cat, you can do so. Go to our website, thankgodimatheist.com/donate. There's options. And as always, we have our top donor to thank, our Lord and Savior, Davis. Dan,
Yes.
do you watch the PBS NewsHour every night? Like I like to
don't.
pretend that I do.
I don't watch any television news anymore.
Oh.
In part because I don't have any broadcast television.
Well, they put it on YouTube. That's how I watch it.
I
And
say
it's a fine broadcast. It's thoughtful, in depth, right?
Mm-hmm.
They take their time, Dan.
Yeah.
It's the hallmark of the PBS NewsHour. Anyway, Judy Woodruff, who is a former anchor of the NewsHour, she's sort of in semi-retirement, and she's doing this series called America at a Crossroads.
Is this where she goes down to she sells her soul to the devil at the crossroads?
No. It's America that's selling at the crossroads, right?
America has definitely already sold its soul. So.
Did America ever really have a soul? Is maybe a question. Anyway,
yeah.
So this series, it's examining the political divide in America, right? That's the theme of the series, and going out to areas that maybe aren't sort of reported on by the national media very often. And so this last week, it caught a segment of this caught my attention because when they teased it, I recognized that they were going to be talking to Greg Locke, who we have played a lot of clips of on this show, in particular during the pandemic, which is when he really got his name. He's had his little tent church that he still has. He's Pentecostal, and he was just sort of rabid anti-mask and just a big COVID doubter in general. And he's
a big Trump fan.
A huge Trump fan. Preached Trump just to the full-throated preaching of like
I mean Trump. If there was a gospel, it was Trump.
And so he ends in this segment, he says something truly remarkable, Dan. I don't know, do you want to maybe explain some of
I mean, look, he said a bunch of things that coming out of his mouth I was like bah, bah, huh? But one of the big things was that he was talking, he's talking to her, he's sitting in front of her, and he's putting on his most genteel face. Like he is the calmest, most reasonable person probably in the state of Tennessee. And he says something along the lines of, we just need to bridge this divide in our country.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, divide is your whole deal.
The brand.
It's literally his brand. So yes, that raised some questions, I think, on it for the two of us, for you and me.
It was so off-brand for him, right?
Yeah.
And but we were I guess I want to talk less about sort of Greg Locke's cries for, unifying America, right? I mean, it was an interesting segment. Like, they talked to members of his congregation and got sort of their perspective, and
that was fascinating.
Yeah.
They talked to a few people who moved to Tennessee to go to his church, specifically, because his message was so powerful for them.
I'm just like, well, who does that?
Ugh.
But anyway,
not good people.
But it got me kind of just thinking about the divide, right? And because I don't know what to think about Greg Locke, because he was talking about also that this election cycle, he's not going to be preaching Trump, right? He's staying.
Yes.
He's going to be keeping that level of politics out of his preaching, right? I don't know.
So he says.
I don't know whether to believe him or not, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Look, if Greg Locke is talking, I'm not believing. That's an article of faith at this point for me.
But the thing is, I do believe, whether or not I believe him specifically, I do believe that there are plenty of people on the right who see the divide and are bothered by it, and want it to be healed, right? They want America to heal. We all want America to heal. Like, I think we're all fucking tired of living in a society that is being torn apart, right? That we watch these divisions and we're all sort of baffled by it. It's this inscrutable problem, because how do you reach across to people who view the world so differently? And we know what these dividing lines are, right? But to just sum it up in really simple terms, we want a secular society, right, where we can all live, and they want one that is where Christianity is allowed to infuse itself wherever it wants, right?
Yeah. Run rampant.
Yeah. I'm trying to be fair here, right? But so, like, we both want it. We both want to see it end, but we have these red lines that we will not cross, and I don't see how we resolve them.
Well, the first clue is it's not Greg Locke that's going to make this that's going to resolve this problem for us.
Well, but it's also not to just call you out, but it's also not that attitude, right? Well, like, if somebody comes forward and says it, we have to start practicing at least taking them at their word for as long as they're still saying it, right?
Until
proven wrong, right?
Yeah.
Until proven that they're being disingenuous, we have to start taking people at their word, right? Because if you don't even believe that the other side wants it, right? That they're just paying it lip service just because Judy Woodruff and her cameras showed up, right? I don't like Greg Locke. I know who he is. There's very little about this world that I would agree with him on, except for that statement.
Well,
so if you can start there, aren't we a little bit closer to figuring something out?
Maybe. Here's what I would say. I'll give you this. I will say, yes, until they show you otherwise, take them at their word that they actually want this.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that Greg Locke showed us otherwise about 4 seconds later, when he said something along the lines of, like, I'm not fighting Democrats, I'm fighting demons. And he meant Democrats. Basically, like, but the fact of the matter is that his position is no less intractable. He has just repositioned how he's talking about it. But other people might be able to be reasonable.
Well, members of his congregation, maybe, or people like
possibly.
them, right?
I mean,
like,
but the problem is, here's the other problem, is that they are fed a continual diet of misinformation. So, for instance, one of the guys that was in his congregation was like, I would never vote for Biden because you know what it comes down to for me? Who's protecting Israel?
Oh,
and it was just
that
like,
was
wait,
a great moment. Yeah.
What? Who has been like, there are Democrats who are refusing to vote for Biden because of how much he has done for Israel. Yeah. What are you talking about?
I know. There was definitely
they just have a different set of facts entirely.
Yeah, for sure.
And largely because of people like Locke.
Yeah.
But also, that's a person who, why does he want to protect Israel? Because of some biblical bullshit, some quote in the Bible that, Greg Locke said to him at some point about he who protects Israel protects, I will protect them or whatever. But like that person is in the swirl. You know what I mean? Like Greg Locke put all these people in the toilet and hit flush. So it's not like it's going to be easy to catch them and direct them to let's have a reasonable flow of conversation.
Right.
But it's still possible.
Right.
That person, I believe it's possible.
Right.
And there are people who aren't. And look, don't bang your head against walls here. But I do think that you're right. There's the divide in this country is far too painful for all of us. And you and I have lived through times where people could disagree about politics and then find common ground.
Right. They were still invited to next year's Thanksgiving.
Right. and didn't literally demonize the other person for believing differently.
Yeah.
Just realized, they have, I don't agree with their perspective, but I don't think that makes them an evil human.
Right.
Which is not where we're at on either side of the aisle right now.
No, I know. And that's why I'm saying that we have to start practicing something different, right? Just because I don't know what the answer is. I honestly don't. And I don't know if this is even, if this isn't just some Pollyanna, everything, we can solve all the world's problems, right?
Right.
Just by being nice. But I do think that it has to start with people, and it has to start with people deciding that they're just that immediate reaction that we have, right, to distrust the other side to the point that I think that they're just lying. Even if they're saying something that I want them to say, right, they're lying.
Yeah.
They're lying. I don't believe it. Right. And it's well, then how in God's name are we going to get anywhere? Right. If you can't even sure, maybe after the fact, like we were saying earlier, believe them until there's a reason to not believe them. Right. But if they're saying, I want to have a nice discourse with you. Right. Or I want to heal the nation. Right. Even though they're wearing a Trump t-shirt. Right. You have to go, okay, but all right, what does that look like? Can we have a conversation? Yeah. Can I listen to you? Because the immediate reaction that I know I have, right, all the time, and that I think that we kind of played out about Greg Locke on this episode is not one where we trust what people are saying. At any level.
100%. And look, you don't have to immediately trust a person who has been untrustworthy in the past. But if they say, hey, I'm on a new road, and you don't, and you're,
if they acknowledge it, which he did
one of the things that you can do is, instead of going, bullshit, and dismissing it, you don't have to trust them, but you can say, that's interesting. What are you doing?
Right.
What's new? How are you showing up for this?
Right.
I support that. If that's true, I want to support you in that.
Right. Is this
how can I show up for you, and what specific steps are you taking?
Right.
And how can I show up for you in that part of the journey.
Right.
And part of that involves not just saying, okay, you tell me all of the ways that you're now believing my thing, but also tell me why you believe your thing. And I want to actually hear you. And I may not agree with you, but I am going to, but at very least, let's start with our mutual humanity and an assumption of good faith.
Right.
I believe that you came to your conclusions in good faith, and I'd like to understand it better. I don't know. I think we just saved the world.
No, we didn't. But it's just this we
got to fix some things, and it's got to start on an interpersonal level. Yeah. I think you're right about that.
And just like, you have to start with yourself, really, right?
And frankly, yeah, and rejecting not just like, yes, we need to sensitize ourselves to trying to do better in our interpersonal relationships and in our interpersonal interactions, but also reject it when you see leaders, when you see politicians doing the opposite.
Yeah.
On your side, it's more important that you reject it when it's your side doing it. Just say, hey, I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with you painting them in an evil picture when you know that they're making, if you hear a reasonable argument come out of the other side and you reject it because it came from another side, even if you disagree with it, if you reject it just out of hand, instead of saying, I can see why you believe that. The reason that you gave for that and the solution that you have offered makes sense. I disagree with it, and here are my reasons, but I see why you believe that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, start, if your mother-in-law is just so upset about all the baby murder in the country.
Oh, the baby murder.
All the murders of the babies. You can say, hey, I understand that position.
I don't like babies being murdered either.
I don't like, I don't like babies being murdered. And B, it is not unreasonable to say that a fetus is a human life. Let me tell you my perspective, though. I get where you're coming from. And then go into bodily autonomy arguments, because I think bodily autonomy is not spoken about enough. You know what I mean? Like, ask them about how they would feel if the government forced someone to give up, a kidney to save another person's life or whatever, and start with that question. And then just find common ground. You don't have to come to the same conclusion ever.
Well, the common ground is babies shouldn't be murdered.
Right.
Because it's an absurd claim that babies are being murdered.
Well, I disagree that that's an absurd claim. I understand why people think that abortion could be considered murder. I guess if you
think that the fetus is a baby.
Right.
But
and I understand why people think that.
But didn't Donald Trump during the debate actually talk about actual baby murder?
Yeah, he said that the abortions were happening after birth.
Right.
Yeah. And so, that's where you can say, can we agree?
This is what I'm saying. Yeah.
That abortions are not happening after birth.
Well, first...
That he was just lying about that.
And sometimes I guess you have to agree on terms, right?
Yeah.
You have to... Because you're right, though. If you have to have a conversation so that you're even talking about the same thing.
Right.
Because if they're talking about baby murder... I agree with that. But what did you just agree to?
Right, exactly. And I think that that's actually a great idea. Start by saying, hey, let's just establish what we mean when we say certain words. And let's calm down the heightened rhetoric and the spoon-fed spin that we've been given by our idiot politicians. And let's just get down to what we mean when we say words and stuff.
Yeah.
That would probably go a long way right there.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because Oh, America.
It's cute. It was fun while we had it.
It was fun while it lasted, and we'll see if we get a reprieve in the fall or if it's a highway to hell.
I've been saying it a lot. I no longer make predictions about this country. I am mystified.
Right now, like, we're supposed to know who the candidate is. I don't know that we do.
I don't know that we do either.
So
it is. I mean, boy, this era will not be skipped in the history books. I'll say that. We're seeing a very interesting moment.
That's the curse, right?
Yeah.
May you live in interesting times.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
All right, friends. Well, hey, listen, everybody. I hope you can go out and have reasonable conversations in your life. That's the blessing that I wish upon all of you. If you would like to write into us about anything that you've heard today, feel free to do so. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. We'd love to hear from you. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah, hey, if you want to donate to the show, go to thankgodimatheist.com/donate.
Music for our show is provided by the Red Rock Hot Club and Gordon Johnston.
Hey, thanks to all y'all for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.